Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Rowell and Francois.
Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. I'm actually here on site at Quantenna at their this is your headquarters, right?
Yes.
So I'm here in San Jose. I actually don't live too far from here. And we got two guests on the show. It's going to be Ambrose. What's the French pronunciation of that?
Ambroise.
Oh, there you go. So for Francois, that's going to be good for him. I think he'd enjoy that. And then just walking into the room is James, who is the VP of Product Line Management. How are you, James?
Hello, how are you doing?
Good. So actually, why don't you introduce yourself? I will never pronounce this correctly, so I'm just going to call you.
Yeah, go with Ambrose. That's fine.
So why don't you tell everyone who you are and what you do at Quantenna?
Okay, so thanks very much for having us. I'm in charge of our corporate marketing and the strategy for Quantenna. I joined about a year and a half ago the company, and before that I was working in France for a French 4G chip company. So in my role, I'm looking, on one hand at the future of the company, the future of the market, where we are going to be headed, and on the other hand, the corporate marketing role. I'm working with a team to, highlight, the advantages of Quantenna, working on our press releases, the website, the events, and creating original content for the company.
Awesome. And James, how about you?
Yeah, again, I echo the same sentiments as Ambrose. I'm James Chen. I look after our products. So I guess the term is product line management, but essentially the simple way to think about this is, how do we define our products? Which markets do we go after? What features should we prioritize versus others? And then obviously evaluating the return that comes back and how that scales, hopefully, over time. Right?
Sure.
So that's pretty bread and butter, product line management. So anyways, glad to be here today.
Cool. And I just wanted to have you guys give an introduction of who Quantenna is for the people that don't know who you guys are. What do you guys do?
Yeah. So Quantenna, we're a Wi-Fi chipset company. We are headquartered here in San Jose, and the company has been around for a few years and went IPO at the end of 2016. So now we're a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ, and the company has around 400 employees today. The revenue for last year was $175 million US, and the company has been growing more than 40% year over year in terms of sales for the past few years. So we're really, growing very fast, and our focus is the segment of high-end Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. So typically the Wi-Fi chipset that you find inside your home gateway or your set-top box, and we're working mostly with carriers. So a number of telcos or cable MSOs use Quantenna chipset for their branded home gateway, the one you receive when you subscribe to their service. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So in terms of number of designs, what we have, we're working with over 50 service providers across the world. A lot of them are in North America. Historically, that's where we had a lot of presence, as well as Western Europe. But we're also extending quite a bit in Southeast Asia, as well as Latin America.
Oh, I didn't realize the whole scale of your guys' operation. And you mentioned a lot of that you work with a lot of carriers. Who are some of those carriers? I know I can start off with one. Is Mimosa considered a carrier? Or
yeah, so actually Mimosa is slightly different. I mean, the main business that we do is the Wi-Fi for carrier-branded Wi-Fi. In addition to that, we have some customers like Mimosa, which you could call, a different category like outdoor Wi-Fi, kind of enterprise Wi-Fi. And Mimosa, they typically supply the box, and then they can sell to smaller carriers that work to deploy their service.
Yeah, the like fixed wireless of the world here. Where
So let me just add a little bit to that. So if you need broadband in your life, who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna call up your favorite broadband internet provider. Here in Silicon Valley, you have a few to choose from. Let's say you call up AT&T, and you say, hey, I want to get your, I want to sign up for internet service. They're like, great. They ship you a box. That box is known as a home gateway.
Yeah.
That home gateway on one end plugs into, let's say, I guess AT&T has a DSL or fiber today. That's what's called the internet connection, the WAN connection. And then the box then distributes that internet speed wirelessly throughout your house, right? Using Wi-Fi. Or Ethernet, but usually people just use Wi-Fi.
Wireless in the house.
So that chip that distributes the WAN wirelessly using Wi-Fi, for example, at AT&T, that's Quantenna. Okay, so we are, to answer your question, we provide the Wi-Fi chipset and the surrounding software. It's actually a whole subsystem, not just chips, to this market, and it comprises the bulk of what we do. Right?
Okay, so your largest market are those
internet service
the cable modems that are in people's houses.
Yeah, it's a gateway.
Okay, yeah,
right. And we also sell our Wi-Fi into other products as well, and also other geographies, right? So in addition to North America, there's obviously Europe. We're also expanding in other regions throughout the world, and depending on the region, we also sell our Wi-Fi in I guess people like to call them set-top boxes. So these are things that used to be wired. They used to have a coax, this thick black coax cable that one end attaches the set-top box, the other end screws into the wall, and it connected through the wall through that coax to a gateway or a receiver, and that's how you got your video distributed throughout the house. So I remember, I had to make sure when I buy my flat screen TV, right under it there's a wall plug and a coax cable, right? Well, what Quantenna did was we actually said, forget the coax cable. You can actually distribute and watch TV, the video and the sound. Get this not through the coax, but through Wi-Fi. So that's why our Wi-Fi chips is also in these set-top boxes. They're wireless set-top box now. So instead of being tethered to a coax cable, forget the tethering.
Set-top box anywhere.
You can put that set-top box. In fact, there are lots of commercials where people, literally operators are showing like they have parties outside by the pool, right? They put in their special place in the home where people can watch it, and you don't have to worry about. Literally don't have to worry about where the location of the coax.
And that just connects to your regular Wi-Fi.
Regular Wi-Fi. Okay. Yeah, it can be our Wi-Fi on the other end and the gateway, like you said, or anybody else's Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Obviously, if it connects to our Wi-Fi on the gateway end, if both ends are Quantenna, then it gets supercharged and you have all these wonderful capabilities that we'll talk about a little later. But obviously, since it's Wi-Fi, it's compatible with anybody else's Wi-Fi. So we're in kind of those kind of markets. That's what we call the carrier business. And then we're like Ambrose was saying, Mimosa is a slightly different category. They're more of an outdoor kind of wireless ISP kind of provider. You can also call them a carrier. And currently that's what we have.
Yeah, well, whoever uses Mimosa would be the carrier.
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly.
They just manufacture the hardware.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, well, maybe just to add one more point. There's also repeaters or bridges inside the home that can be between the gateway, the set-top box, or the end client. So that's also a market we're addressing within the home.
Are you talking about the mesh technology, or
could be mesh nodes or simple repeaters, but those devices that help you to extend the range of your connectivity within the home.
Yeah, I'm familiar with companies like Broadcom and Qualcomm, and so Quantenna is very new to me. Like, what would be the differentiating factor between Quantenna and those two big players?
Oh, okay. Well, good question. First of all, we're nice people. Right? We're very humble to work with, and we greet you with a smile, right? No, but seriously, it's our technology. Number one, there's various things. First thing is our technology. So Quantenna really started off in this business with a technology that that we pioneered, and it literally, this was, essentially was called something called 4x4. What that means is you use 4 antennas to receive and 4 antennas to transmit Wi-Fi, right? And this was quite a while ago. And back then, people were like, "Why do you need to do that? 4 antennas on a box? Isn't that overkill? This is just going to cost too much money. What kind of applications would need this? 4x4. How do you spell it? And so they were very much against this. And Quantenna spent some of our formal earlier years proving to people that there was an application, much like the one I just described to you all previously, which is wirelessly distribute on-demand, high-quality TV if you're an operator throughout the home without being near the proximity of a coax jack, right? So we proved that 4x4, having 4 antennas for both transmit and receive, was optimal to fit that usage scenario. So we led the charge essentially for wireless video, not just like cache data, like OTT is mainly buffered or cache data, but we're talking about good old-fashioned linear live TV. You can't buffer any of this stuff, right?
Right.
If you want to watch Steph Curry, you go for like a four-pointer or whatever. You don't want that thing to be delayed at all. It has to be instantaneous, right? Because it's live sports.
Right.
So and you can't have any stutter or jitter.
No
it can't be rebuffering. No delays. It has to be super smooth. So Quantenna pioneered this 4x4 Wi-Fi for that application, and once we were there, we were off to the races. We then defined the next generation of 4x4. So Wi-Fi is one of these standards that keep evolving. They add new features, higher speed. So we're first to do 4x4 11N. We pioneer 4x4 for something called 802.11ac. That's another wireless standard that was ratified in 2013. Then we pushed the envelope again, always keeping in mind, more speed, less latency, more devices you can serve simultaneously, more capacity. We invented 8x8. So like 4x4, instead of having 4, transmit and receive capability, we had, 8 antennas for transmit and 8 antennas for receive. And that gives, all sorts of magnitude level increases. So what differentiates Quantenna is primarily our technology, but I will also say that our vision to put and push the boundaries of Wi-Fi in places where people may not have thought otherwise, right? And there's plenty of example, even just recently, I believe, was it last week when we had the Vision release? Yep. So now we have a cloud system, cloud meaning, not chips, but, in the data center somewhere, in the internet somewhere, cloud, where we can actually remotely collect data from those boxes, let's say those gateways in your homes. But think about millions of those gateways throughout all of a certain region, and we can monitor them, and also this helps us kind of deploy these boxes on time for our customers better. So we're constantly on the lookout, and that's called vision. So we're constantly on the lookout for ways to really offer differentiation, that kind of satisfies the increasing levels of user experience as demanded, because people just connect through Wi-Fi today. Yeah. You rarely have, devices where people say, where's that Ethernet port on my iPad? Right, it doesn't exist. Right. Exactly. So anyway, hopefully I've, given a little bit.
No, I think that's interesting because you said it early on with the 4x4 and then 8x8, and there are a lot of devices that don't even support or they don't have 4 radios right on their devices. But I think what I found interesting was you have your chipset, which is on the gateway, and you might have that set-top box that also has your same chipset, and then you're actually able to take advantage of that radio chain to actually transmit more data, so that way you can get the high definition. And the
I think you almost got it. I think what I was trying to say is that when you have Quantenna on both sides of the wireless link, one for example at the gateway and one at the set-top box, there's a lot of unique things that we can enable. And this is great, but it's not. We don't need to operate like that. Our chipsets on the set-top box can work with any Wi-Fi vendor on the gateway, and vice versa. Our gateway, our Wi-Fi chips on the gateway can work with any Wi-Fi vendor, for example, that's in your iPhone, you have a MacBook and or whatever, right? So it really doesn't, you can mix and match. The advantages of 8x8, for example, or 4x4, for example, to give you a concrete example, exist no matter what client exists from our competitors or any chip. If Quantenna 8x8 Wi-Fi chip is on the gateway, we provide lots of benefits to the client. Now, some clients are more advanced, so they'll extract more performance when the gateway is an 8x8. But in general, the 8x8 gives markedly better performance regardless of what's happening on the client. Because I'll give you a very simple example. The 8x8 has 8 receivers instead of 4. So that's analogous to having, twice the number of chains, receivers, to listen for these, very faint, potentially very faint signals from the client side. Because, we walk to the edges of our home, we may go out to the backyard. You never know, right? People's environment in the home is different. And the client by nature, let's just say it's a mobile client, has a battery. And those guys tend to conserve power. Yeah, so they're not going to be blasting out power or broadcasting at very high signal levels.
Yeah, so it's not the same signal level as your
gateway.
Access point. Yeah.
That's right. So the gateway has to have really good ears, right? And the one way to give it really good ears is, for example, upgrade from 4 receivers to 8 receivers. So all of a sudden, theoretically, you can receive a signal that's twice as small as a 4x4. So therefore, that's a direct impact to user experience because, I can tell you, it's, the 8x8 will just hear a signal from farther away from a client than a 4x4 will, right? And there's other advantages on the transmit too. Right, so with an 8x8 versus 4x4, and we can get into some of that a little later. But the key point is, no matter if it's Quantenna on either side, it's we'll work with anybody else's Wi-Fi. If it's Quantenna on both ends, then really special things. The stars get aligned, and we have really special things that happen. We can talk about that as well.
Okay. So why focus mainly on the carrier side? How about enterprise Wi-Fi? Or I know you have also consumer level, your chipsets are in consumer level access points.
Well, I think a lot of the focus on the operators or the carrier side was because of the history I just told you, because of that end use, that usage case of wireless video distribution. So in the carrier space, once you get in, right, you're kind of in, and they kind of consider you for the next generation and the next generation, and so on and so forth. So it's somewhat sticky. So once we got in, that kind of just ballooned, increased to what we have today. But to your point, why haven't we also entered into other industries? We are, and I think that's where Ambrose was saying earlier. He's also tasked with looking at other markets where we can apply our technology. So we definitely are going to do that. Okay. It's just that where we are today, it's predominantly operators or carriers, but our technology can equally, in fact, has the same advantages in different spaces as well. For example, in retail space, they really care about that number on the box, right? You walk into Best Buy, right? The shelf space is limited, so the retailer will want to have a really nicely designed box, cool graphics, and most importantly, put a really big speed number on the box, and people go, ooh, right?
And I'll tell you, that's where the guys in my industry, which is mainly the enterprise wireless, is we don't like that.
Yeah. So enterprise is totally separate. Right. Enterprise will be like, well, how can I scale this, right? Because they'll deploy across a whole spans of solution. How can I, scalability is important, stability is important, capacity is important, on time, reliability is important. Some of these enterprise guys write their own software just to make sure everything is going all right, right? So that's another different set of challenges. Different set of challenges, but the underlying silicon can still be used. Of course, it has to get customized on the software side to kind of fit in properly into their system, like you said, right? Which is very correct. Enterprise has their own system, and they don't. And there's a way to get in, and software is very important. But the chipset side, I think, it could be equally used for enterprises.
So would you say? So is there like a silicon on the chip? Like how would you guys describe that? Like you guys do your own hardware?
So Quantenna, we're in the so-called fabless semiconductor business. Okay. So like Broadcom, like Qualcomm, like even parts of Intel today, what it is we design it in-house, right? And then we upload the design file to a foundry. The most famous is TSMC, but there's others. These are the foundries of the companies who actually take our design and actually make the chips. And then after they make the chips, they give it back to us. We have physical possession of these physical chips, and then we sell these physical chips to different customers throughout the world. So we don't, back in the day, TJ Rogers made famous the phrase, only real men have fabs. So back in the day, if you designed chips and sold them, you had your own little foundry, like in some parking lot someplace. But that's no longer the model, because these foundries have to scale, not just the volume of chips they have to pump out every year, but technology, nanoscaling, like down to the nanometer. It gets very expensive. So that's why there are foundries today, and predominantly most chip companies, they kind of outsource the manufacturing, not the design, to those foundries, but then they get it back and we sell the chips out. Okay. So it's the same model as all the other big guys do. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we are in the chip business. But one unique thing is when we sell our chip, we also sell the software drivers that come along with it. And with the case of Quantenna, we also sell, with the introduction of Vision last week, a service, a cloud service that makes sure that people kind of use our chips and we monitor it the right way so that there's no bugs in the field and help our customers.
That's an
better.
Interesting point to put there with the chipset, because a lot of the issues I run into, or with other people in my field that run into issues, are driver issues, right? You have devices that have either poor performance on the chipsets, or they have a lot of bugs. How do you guys combat that? Like, you have this Vision, maybe you can go into that more, because I've never heard of anyone having a cloud monitoring solution that monitors the chipset.
Yeah, so we can explain that. The idea really is, for us, we wanted to make the life of our customers simpler. And it can be quite challenging when you want to introduce a new product, you're building a new gateway, a new router, or something like that. So Vision, we basically leverage the expertise of Quantenna, the knowledge of Wi-Fi chipset itself, to provide this tool that helps you monitor what is going on in the field. So typically, you mentioned driver issues. The tool could detect that there's too many reboots happening, and maybe there is a driver issue to investigate, or there are some dropped packets. Is it a problem where the antennas not properly designed? Is there a problem with the hardware, or is it a software issue? So basically, Vision gives that insight to our customers during the initial deployment phase. So typically the first year, before they introduce really the product on the field, they're going to move from the lab to small scale trials and then larger scale trials. So Vision gives you kind of real-time monitoring of what is going on. Also some reports that helps you analyze the source of the issue. So typically, wrong software version can be detected much more easier using Vision.
Now, do you guys provide access, like API access into that, so other people can build their own systems that get that data? Because I think that is actually a good
so there's several
point.
things. Let's say Vision itself is a fully encapsulated service they can access to. It's customizable, but we provide that. In addition, we provide an interface level to our software to third-party companies that can plug in. And we have a number of partners in that space that we'll be announcing in the coming months. Some of them have cloud-based monitoring solutions that can access a number of parameters on our chipset to design their own service.
Okay.
And that can happen in many areas, not just for cloud-based monitoring. Right, we have in areas, related to security, services, optimizing, adding mesh software on top of our solutions. So that's extremely important for us.
Yeah, because I can see how someone can take advantage of that as far as troubleshooting clients, where you can get data such as the signal strength, SNR, retry rates, and more, because that helps them figure out on the infrastructure side how can they adjust and make it better for the device itself, right? Because that's where I think what we lack in the industry is insight into the actual device, as far as what is the device seeing, that why is it having issues over wireless, because we always see it from the AP's perspective.
I think so. Two things. One is what you mentioned, the deep insights So collecting the parameters, the very same parameters you just said, that provides the very deep insight. But also, we're also finding, like Ambrose was talking about, there are some problems that occur only in statistical numbers. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't have a cloud monitoring service, it's very difficult to root it out, right? Because you're going to have to send people to the field. Mm-hmm. And let's suppose, hypothetically, this problem happens once every 1,000 parts or 100 parts even. I mean, that's not very scalable, right? And I mean, that's not the 21st century, right? That's just not the way we work these days.
It just costs too much to those truck rolls.
Yeah, it just costs too much, and it's also not scalable. And even if you could send people to the field, how are they all going to triangulate?
Yeah.
It's going to be very difficult back at the factory once they come back. So this vision, service allows this to be all done seamlessly through the cloud, through the web, using, the latest, protocols that the cloud offers and storage and so forth. And now on top of that platform, we've built in the smarts to kind of monitor it deeply. But, so for these second class of problems, you need this, or else if there are ones that happen only once in a blue moon, then you don't want to be sitting up at night waiting for that blue moon. Mm-hmm. But the system could be up at night waiting for this. And you come in the office tomorrow, and ideally it will tell you, I collected statistics over 10,000 devices that are in early pre-trial right now, and I found
this issue,
which you otherwise would not. And that, I think, the proof is really in the pudding, right? And when we show this to people, they immediately recognize the ability, the flexibility, and the power of this tool. And so hence the name Vision, because you can actually look at things that you could not have before.
Okay. Right. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me, and I'll probably look into this more because that's what actually has me interested is the client side.
Yeah, try out Vision. We'll hook you up with a copy.
Yeah, so we've got some material on Vision on our website, but we'd be happy to provide you more.
Okay, yeah, especially something I could share to people and see how you guys are helping the client side out and figuring things out with these issues. Because I see how carriers can take advantage of this.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're a big carrier and you have clients or customers that keep saying my Wi-Fi sucks, what exactly about it that sucks? I mean, everyone's wireless now, right? You have like this apartment complex and everyone has the same gateway. What kind of issues are they running
nobody
into?
has invented a set of a Google or Apple eyewear that sees Wi-Fi waves in the air. So you will have to rely on Vision for the time being. So that's the way to think about it, yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I want to transition near the end of this conversation here as to where you guys see the future going as far as wireless goes. You talked a lot about HD video. I know video is kind of where everything's at, right? Everyone's watching video wirelessly on mobile devices. I know I want a wireless gateway so I can put that box anywhere I want to.
Okay. So actually, we created a blog on our website, and one of the, most recent posts we did was about why you need, 10 gigabit Wi-Fi. So here we're talking about some of the, new services, new applications that you can see in the space of the home. So maybe you can start with what is going on there. So you mentioned video, but as of today the industry is starting to move towards 8K. I mean, it's only the beginning, will take some time.
I don't even have a 4K television.
yeah, neither do I, but go to Japan will be a different game there. When you go towards higher definition video, if you put into that the fact that people have more and more screens in their home, not necessarily a TV, but I'd see in my house, every kid wants to watch his own Netflix movie or whatever.
It's not a TV, it's a screen, it's a monitor.
Yeah, it could be an iPad, whatever. But having multiple, video in parallel, that's quite challenging, especially as they move, in resolution. So that's one thing. But another, important evolution is the usage of the cloud, not just for storage, but also, synchronizing amongst devices. Now, a lot of complex applications are not, on your phone or your PC. I was hearing the other day that like people who do video editing, instead of having a big software locally, they just run a remote server. I mean, so every time they make a small change on their PC or their Mac, there's huge data going back and forth from the cloud. So that, requires a lot of data. People talk about VR and AR. So right now it's still very confidential. It's very small, but there's more and more applications happening there that requires a huge throughput if you want a wireless connection to your headset, because you don't want to be walking around and tripping over the cables. So there's a lot of new applications that are driving the need for higher speed within the home.
Okay.
So that's one evolution that we definitely see is going to continue, and that drives the needs for companies like Quantenna really focus and committed to the high-end Wi-Fi. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about the futuristic home here.
Yeah. So we're not just looking at the home. The home is really where we have most of our focus. We have some stuff outside, outdoor Wi-Fi. Definitely, interesting evolutions happening outside are related to 5G and, 5G wireless networks. So that's something that, is going to happen. It's going to be quite big. And what is important is that for us is 5G will need the Wi-Fi. As James was explaining, even if you have a great pipe inside your home, you need Wi-Fi to distribute it. And one of the applications for 5G, or the first applications for 5G, is going to be fixed wireless access to your home for carriers to complement, fiber or DOCSIS deployments, which are great, but require you to have, a hole and run a cable to people's houses. For many regions, carriers are going to be using fixed wireless, often using millimeter wave like 28 gigahertz, 39 gigahertz. But once you have that inside your home, you're going to need Wi-Fi. And the bigger the pipe inside the home, so with 5G it's going to be, much bigger, the more Wi-Fi, the higher quality Wi-Fi you're going to need. So we're monitoring really 5G as an interesting, evolution. And, there's all the space of, automotive, autonomous vehicles, self-driving, AI, machine vision. So we're not present in that space yet, but this is something that we're looking at because the wireless connectivity part is going to be important. So most likely will be 5G access to your car, but how you distribute it inside the car is most likely going to remain on Wi-Fi. And then there's new things such as cars talking to each other, vehicular to vehicle communications, and that might be based on Wi-Fi. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do looking at these new spaces. We're very focused today on the home and looking at how we can extend outside of that.
Yeah, that's a very far vision out.
Well, we have to, right? I mean,
You're right.
As a company, we're a public company, so we have very high ambitions for the company, and we're growing inside our market and looking at what we can do to further expand.
Well, I think, part of the fun is, I mean, Ambrose did a great job outlining some of the key areas and buzzwords, if you will, that's in, people's lexicon or what you read, these days. But I think the part of the fun is you don't know what's going to be out there, right? Because you can never know. We didn't know that we would put a 4-chain enable this, new use case of wireless distribution at home when the company was founded, 11 or 12 years ago. But that's part of the fun. So nobody can really have that roadmap to really kind of foresee everything that's going to happen coming down the pike. I think, in absence of that, what's more important or what's necessary is that you have to be agile. You have to have a good technology base, right? Because if you're not selling on technology and you're just selling on cost or supply chain or something else, then you wouldn't be able to capitalize on some of these new trends, or you wouldn't be able to even justify or invent a new use case by yourself. So I think part of the fun is you're not knowing, but then not knowing, that's difficult to build a business. But as long as you have the ingredients and the DNA to kind of work those out, be bold, try things, I think that's going to carry you a long way through the end of the day. And Quantenna has had a successful track record of doing that. The 4x4s with 8x8, and go in the future. Sure, all these opportunities are great that Ambrose said, but maybe there'll be new ones down the road. Maybe people will use Wi-Fi not for its raw gigabit speed, but for something else. There are certain things in that area that we're looking at, right? So imagine using the wave properties of Wi-Fi in your home to do other things other than transmit data. I mean, that sounds kind of far out there, but it's not that far out there. And we are looking seriously at these new applications. So as long as we have that in our DNA, I think Quantenna will we'll be fine, we'll stay ahead of the curve, and we'll continue to innovate, right? So you need that. You need that. You can't do what just other people are doing. You need this extra second component to get you over the hump and compete and above and beyond what your competitors can do. So
awesome. I like that. Yeah, I look forward to seeing what else comes out there. I mean, you guys are, I guess, trying to push the envelope there. You guys are pushing the envelope. I see a lot of patents out there and outside on the floor, and the hardware that you're in out there. I was admiring what equipment you guys run, and a lot of those people have that in their homes. They just don't know, right? Like I might not have known that my parents have that. Quantenna chipset in their in their Wi-Fi router. So that's good to see. Well, just want to end this episode. Maybe you guys can tell everyone where can they find more information, where can they read more data on what you guys have.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, our website, www.quantenna.com is a great source of information. We're talking about our products, but a little bit also about some of the technologies we have, going across these things. Also, being a publicly traded company, we have a number of financial information documents available there, and that you can find a lot of things. More recently, we created a blog for the company, so I mentioned some of the postings we did. Moving forward, typically on a monthly basis, we'll be posting topics around Quantenna technology, but also the wireless space in general. And we're, adding also some white papers. Typically, our white papers will be talking about new technologies like 11AX, what is in there, or some of the merits of, underlying technologies like OFDMA, multi-user MIMO. And one of the things I think James has mentioned in the past is we're very focused on high quality. For instance, MIMO 8x8 with 8 antennas is something that we've been writing about as well. So in addition to our website, we're working with some editors and some bloggers who will be writing from time to time about Quantenna. We're also joining some events like Wi-Fi Now, which is next month in Santa Clara, if I'm not mistaken, and James will be speaking there. So
it's in Redwood City.
Redwood City.
I'll actually be there as well.
Okay. So our presence, I think, is increasing as the company grows, and we go to other events like CES, Mobile World Congress, IBC in Amsterdam, and would be very happy to be in touch with any of your audience. They can reach out to us, and we'll be happy to give them more information.
Awesome.
PR@Quantenna.com.
Okay, so that's PR@Quantenna.com if they want to get more information. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for having me here at your headquarters. Thank you for joining me on this show. You guys provided a lot of good information and an introduction of who Quantenna is, so look forward to seeing more.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.